The war had lasted for 3 centuries. It would end in less than 5 hours. Elias Voss stood on the bridge of the TFS Requiem, the most advanced warship ever built by human hands. The starlight gleamed off his polished command insignia, a simple silver triangle, the only symbol humanity needed. His eyes, cold and calculating, scanned the fleet projections. 1,000 Terran warships, each an apex predator in the void, stood poised at the edge of the Orion expanse. Beyond them lay the enemy. The Drakthal Empire had ruled this war for centuries. They had crushed civilizations, enslaved entire races, burned worlds to cinders just to prove a point. To them, this war was eternal, a slow but inevitable march toward domination. Then they attacked New Terra. A colony of 5 million civilians. Gone. No warning. No negotiations. No survivors. Humanity had watched the war from the sidelines, observing, analyzing, preparing. The other species assumed they were weak, unwilling to fight. The Drakthal assumed they were prey. They were all wrong. T-5 hours to victory. "Sir, fleet is in position," said Captain Miracade, her voice sharp, focused. "The Drakthal defensive network remains unaware of our approach." "Orders?" Elias Voss exhaled slowly. The war had been fought with grand strategies, prolonged sieges, attrition tactics. It had cost quadrillions of lives. A slow, grinding meat grinder of a conflict. That was not how humanity waged war. "Execute the first strike," Voss said. The order rippled through the fleet. Silence fell across the bridge. The TFS Requiem adjusted its trajectory by 0.004 degrees, aligning with a precise, pre-calculated firing solution. Then, without fanfare, the first shot was fired. Not a volley of plasma. Not an opening salvo. A single projectile, compact, unassuming, launched at near-light speed. It wasn't a weapon by design. It was a shipyard-grade mining drill. It hit the primary orbital station over Valera 9, the Drakthal's main supply hub, with such absurd velocity that physics itself seemed offended. Shields flared, failed, and then reality shattered. The station buckled inward, folding like wet paper before detonating from within. The war had begun. T-4 hours, 37 minutes to victory. Panic rippled through the Drakthal command network. The station, essential to their supply lines, was gone in an instant. The Drakthal fleet, positioned around it, flinched. No one had ever seen an attack like this. A second later, humanity showed them the meaning of shock and awe. Hundreds of dark matter warheads ignited, bypassing energy shielding, detonating inside ships that should have been untouchable. Drakthal battleships, hardened by centuries of war, burst like overripe fruit. Their entire formation, carefully arranged for a prolonged engagement, collapsed under the merciless, pinpoint-efficient brutality of human precision. The battle should have lasted weeks. Instead, within 37 minutes, the Valera fleet ceased to exist. Overlord Scarvas received the news in real time. "A single battle does not win a war," one of his generals snarled. "Let the Terrans come. We will break them as we have broken all before them." Scarvas did not answer. He watched the battle unfold through a tactical display, yellow reptilian eyes narrowing. He had fought for 200 years. He had seen every kind of war. This was different. The humans weren't fighting to win. They were fighting to end it. T-3 hours, 12 minutes to victory. Elias Voss watched the Drakthal throneworld loom in the distance, a jagged, volcanic sphere surrounded by thousands of orbital defenses, planetary cannons, and hardened battle stations. It was a fortress meant to withstand millennia of siege warfare. That was irrelevant. "Status," Voss said. Tactical Officer Rennick smirked. "The Drakthal have fully committed to planetary defense mode. They think we're here to wage a conventional siege." Voss nodded. "Good. For centuries, every major war had been fought the same way. Blockades. Protracted assaults. Months-long attrition battles. The Drakthal assumed that was how this engagement would unfold. Instead, humanity rewrote the rules of war in real time. The TFS Requiem released its payload. Not missiles. Not nukes. Molecular destabilization charges, a classified Terran technology the galaxy had never seen. The moment they detonated, reality itself fractured. Every structure, every defensive station, every gun turret simply ceased to exist, unraveling at the atomic level. The entire planetary defense grid vanished in a wave of silent annihilation. T-2 hours, 3 minutes to victory. Scarvas stood on the balcony of his war palace, staring at the fire-streaked sky. His defenses were gone. His empire was dying faster than he could comprehend. He turned to his war council. Deploy every remaining ship. If we fall, we take them with us. His generals hesitated. They had spent their lives believing in their species' dominance. The Drakthal did not lose wars. The Drakthal were war. And yet, the humans had killed them faster than they could react. One of his officers swallowed hard. Overlord, the humans did not even announce their arrival. They did not ask for terms. They did not posture. They simply killed us, another finished, voice hollow. Scarvas clenched his fists. We fight to the last. His generals nodded. But there was fear in their eyes. Because for the first time in history, the predators had become the prey. T-1 hour, 15 minutes to victory. Elias Voss led the first wave of drop troops personally. The Drakthal Palace trembled as Terran soldiers breached the atmosphere at terminal velocity, wrapped in kinetic dampening drop pods. The sky rained fire. Voss's boots hit the palace floor hard, rifle already raised. His elites fanned out, moving with a level of precision that was downright unnatural. The Drakthal defenders barely had time to blink before they died. Gunfire roared. Blades flashed. Human shock troopers tore through centuries-old warriors like they were children. The throne world, which had stood unconquered for millennia, fell in just over an hour. T-0, victory achieved. Overlord Scarvas lay dying on the floor of his own throne room. Elias Voss stood over him, rifle in hand. You! Scarvas gurgled, blood spilling from his fanged mouth. What, are you? Voss's expression did not change. A lesson. He pulled the trigger. The war was over. Final words. An emergency transmission echoed through the dying remains of the Drakthal Empire. It came from the Zalari Dominion, humanity's former allies. You ended the war, the Zalari High Chancellor said. In less than 5 hours. Elias Voss stared at the transmission, voice cold. No. We ended a problem. And across the galaxy, every species that had once underestimated humanity felt fear for the first time. The Drakthal Empire was dead. Their warlords slain. Their fleets reduced to drifting wreckage. Their throne world turned to silent ruins. It had taken humanity 4 hours and 45 minutes to do what the entire galactic community had failed to accomplish in 300 years. And now, everyone was afraid. Elias Voss stood in the command chamber of the TFS Requiem, the glow of the holographic war map casting sharp shadows across his face. The war was over, but the battle for humanity's future had just begun. T+15 minutes post-victory. The Zalari Dominion, the so-called benevolent rulers of the civilized galaxy, were already calling. They had once begged humanity to join their war, dismissed them as potential allies at best. Now, they were treating Voss like a force of nature. The Dominion High Chancellor, an insectoid being with sapphire chitin and 6 folded arms, appeared in the main viewport. His voice was clipped, controlled, but underneath, there was unease. Commander Voss, what you have done is... He paused, as if searching for the right word. Unprecedented. Voss said nothing. He let the silence stretch. He wanted to see the Chancellor sweat. The insectoid twitched its mandibles. The war is over. We must discuss what comes next. Voss leaned forward, his gaze like a blade. What comes next is none of your concern. The Chancellor hesitated. No one had ever spoken to the Dominion like that. Certainly no human. You misunderstand, Commander, the Chancellor said carefully. The balance of power. Voss cut him off. The balance of power doesn't exist anymore. We proved that today. He gestured to the tactical map behind him. The Drakthal weren't just defeated, they were erased. Every ship, every stronghold, every high-ranking officer gone in a matter of hours. The war, which had been expected to rage for centuries more, had ended before lunchtime. The Chancellor exhaled, clicking his mandibles in rapid succession, a Zalari sign of anxiety. You must understand, the other species are concerned. Voss smiled. It wasn't friendly. They should be. T+1 hour post-victory, the shadow moves. Deep in the void, beyond the shattered remains of the Drakthal home system, another meeting was taking place. Not among the victors. Among the afraid. A dozen alien species gathered in a secure, encrypted channel, their holographic figures flickering against the backdrop of the cold abyss. Some had fought alongside the Dominion. Others had once supported the Drakthal, hoping for scraps of power when the war was done. Now, they all had one thing in common. They feared humanity more than they had ever feared the Drakthal. Their methods, hissed a reptilian diplomat, his emerald scales bristling. They do not fight like we do. They do not war. They erase. An avian delegate, feathers fluffed in agitation, nodded. They turned a 3-century war into an afternoon inconvenience. If we do nothing, we will be next. A synthetic intelligence, its voice a cold digital whisper, added, humanity does not seek prolonged conflict. It seeks conclusions. We must consider preemptive action. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The galaxy had always functioned on an equilibrium of struggle, wars that lasted generations, power shifts that moved slowly, predictably. Then the humans arrived and rewrote reality. We must act before they consolidate power, said a towering amphibian warlord. Before they realize what they truly are. And so, a secret war began. T+3 hours post-victory, the betrayal begins. Elias Voss had known it was coming. He had seen the Zalari hesitation, the flicker of distrust behind their multi-lensed eyes. He had read the cold numbers, the sudden diplomatic back-channel traffic, the quiet repositioning of ships near Terran borders. The Dominion wasn't grateful. They were afraid. The difference between them and the Drakthal? The Drakthal had underestimated humanity once. They never got a second chance. The Zalari were about to make the same mistake. Sir, Captain Maricade's voice came through crisp and urgent. We intercepted an encrypted transmission routed through a Dominion relay station. High priority. Not meant for us. Voss turned. Play it. The bridge fell silent as the message crackled to life. Imperative we do not allow the Terrans to dictate the future. They are no longer allies. They are a rogue element. A singularity of destruction. If we hesitate, we will find ourselves on the wrong side of history. The only solution is complete containment. If that fails, annihilation. A cold, familiar silence filled the bridge. Cade inhaled sharply. They're already planning a strike. Voss exhaled through his nose, eyes narrowing. Of course they are. Humanity had made the galaxy tremble. Now the galaxy was trying to put the monster back in its cage. The problem was, this monster had no chains. Voss straightened. Send a message to the Zalari Dominion. 3 words. Cade blinked. 3 words? Voss nodded. His voice was iron. We see you. T+4 hours post-victory, the counterstrike begins. On the surface of a dead Drakthal moon, a Dominion Black Ops fleet prepared to strike. Their orders were clear. Hit humanity first. Strike before they consolidate power. Eliminate Elias Voss before he becomes unstoppable. They had 1 hour to execute. They lasted 42 minutes. The Dominion strike force, comprised of cloaked warships and elite commandos, ceased to exist before they even deployed. Their attack was met with instant, overwhelming retaliation, as if humanity had been waiting for them. Which, of course, they had. Elias Voss watched the battle report unfold, his expression unreadable. The Dominion thought they were still playing the old game, secrets, covert assassinations, power plays. But humanity played by different rules. The moment the Dominion considered betrayal, humanity had already calculated 10 countermeasures. The first had just been executed. "Sir," Cade said quietly. "What now?" Voss stared at the Dominion homeworld, floating like an emerald jewel in the void. His voice was calm. "We send a message." A pause. "And if they don't listen?" Voss's eyes were cold fire. "Then we remind them why the war ended in 5 hours. T+5 hours post-victory, the last mistake." The galaxy had barely begun to comprehend what humanity had done when they made a fatal miscalculation. They thought Elias Voss would hesitate. That humanity, having just ended a 3-century war in 5 hours, would stop. They were wrong. T+6 hours, the first and final warning. The Zalari Dominion High Council convened in a private, sealed chamber, a sanctum designed to decide the fate of empires. It had stood for thousands of years. Today, it was filled with fear. How did they intercept the message? Demanded High Chancellor Vasserka, his mandibles twitching in barely concealed panic. That transmission was encrypted at the highest level. How did they eliminate the strike fleet before deployment? Another counselor hissed. Silence. No one had an answer. The humans always had answers. And then, without warning, every screen in the chamber flickered to life. A transmission. A human transmission. "We see you." The chamber froze. Voss's voice was calm, precise, undeniable. "You were given a chance," he said. "You should have taken it." The High Chancellor bared his fangs. "We are the Dominion. We have ruled for millennia. You are a species of upstarts." Voss cut him off with a single sentence. "Check your outer colonies." A pause. Then frantic tapping on consoles. Shouting. Fear. They checked. The colonies were gone. Not destroyed. Not bombed. Gone. Human strike teams had silently dismantled them. Entire planetary garrisons, orbital defenses, infrastructure, all erased in under an hour. And the Dominion hadn't even known. For the first time in history, the High Council truly understood what they had unleashed. T+7 hours, the show of force. The TFS Requiem hovered over the Dominion's capital world, its presence alone a weapon. It did not fire. It did not need to. The Dominion fleet, the pride of their empire, stood at full readiness. Thousands of warships, primed for battle. But none of them moved. None of them fired. Because they knew. They had seen. "Sir," Captain Miracade said, standing beside Voss. "They're not launching countermeasures." "Of course they aren't," Voss replied. "They've run the numbers." The Dominion had ruled by force, by power, by sheer overwhelming presence. They had dictated the terms of war. But now, for the first time, they were powerless. Because against humanity, war was not an option. War was suicide. T+7 hours, 22 minutes, the conversation that changed everything. The transmission came through. The High Chancellor himself. His voice, once commanding, was now measured. Controlled. Because he was speaking to a man who had erased an empire in less than a day. Elias Voss. High Chancellor. Silence stretched between them. A final moment before history turned. "Name your terms," the Chancellor said. Cade's breath hitched slightly. The bridge crew exchanged glances. This wasn't just surrender. This was acknowledgement. Elias Voss had not only won the war. He had ended the era of the Dominion. His voice, when it came, was absolute. Humanity stands alone, Voss said. We answer to no one. We owe nothing. We will expand, develop, and advance at our own discretion. You will not interfere. Ever. The Chancellor hesitated. And if we do? Voss didn't even blink. You won't. Another silence. The weight of finality in the air. Then the Chancellor exhaled. The war, the galaxy, everything he had known, gone. We accept. T+8 hours, a galaxy reshaped. The war was over. The Dominion formally withdrew from all remaining conflicts. Their fleets returned to their home sectors. Their rule, once absolute, was now fragile. Because now, they knew. The universe had a new apex predator. And it wasn't them. T+12 hours, the final transmission. As the TFS Requiem left Dominion space, a final message was sent to every major power in the galaxy. Simple. Direct. Undeniable. Humanity has entered the game. We are not here to play. Epilogue, the fear that remained. For centuries, the galaxy had thought of humans as background noise, a species too cautious, too reluctant to engage. Now, when alien strategists spoke of humanity, their voices dropped to whispers. Because humans did not conquer. They did not rule. They ended wars before they began. And that was what terrified everyone the most.